Lakeland Currents, your public affairs program for North Central Minnesota. Production funding for Lakeland Currents is made possible by Bemidji Regional Airport, serving the region with daily flights to Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport. More information available at bemidjiairport.org. Closed captioning for Lakeland Currents is sponsored by Nisswa Tax Service, tax preparation for businesses and individuals. Online at nisswatax.com.
Hello again. My name is Jason Edens, your host of Lakeland Currents. Today, coming to you safely from the Hunt Utilities Group campus in Pine River, Minnesota. First and foremost, I hope that you, your families, your communities are all staying safe and healthy during these challenging times. Once again, as usual, I want to thank you for your ongoing support of Lakeland Public TV, which obviously continues to provide outstanding coverage during the pandemic. Friends, small businesses make up 99% of all businesses in the United States. However, small businesses and the workforce are facing unexpected and unprecedented challenges as we battle the coronavirus. As we all know, the economic impact of the pandemic is historic. Fortunately, however, financial assistance is here in our region and available to you today. Here to help us understand the relief that is available and, more importantly, how to access it, is my guest, Cheryl Hills, the Executive Director of Region 5 Development Commission, based here in the Brainerd Lakes area. Cheryl, welcome to the program.
Hi, Jay. Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it. So before we get into the nuts and bolts of exactly what this relief package contains, can you just tell us a little bit about Region 5 from a big picture perspective so we understand your role in the region as well as the COVID assistance?
Sure. The Region 5 Development Commission serves the 5 counties in central Minnesota of Crow Wing, Cass, Morrison, Todd, and Wadena. And we have for almost 50 years now delivered a lot of programs around economic development, community development, and transportation. And part of that economic development work for about 30 plus years has been lending through EDA money that was established a while ago. So we've been filling the role. What I like to tell folks is our overarching role is to address regional critical issues in ways that fill gaps that other partners aren't able to. So that's our charge via state statute, Jay, and hopefully that gives you a little bit of information about why we're in this space.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very helpful. Thank you. So you've obviously been working in the region for decades and decades now, but our focus has pivoted of late, of course, on account of the pandemic. So my main question for you today to kick off our conversation is, if I'm a small business owner here in this region, what can I do in order to weather the storm if my business has been adversely affected either directly or indirectly? What resources are out there for me?
Well, first I like to share, like many of my colleagues who are doing lending in this space right now across the state and nation, is just as a small business owner, don't panic. There's a lot to navigate, and don't feel like you have to navigate it all on your own because it can be confusing at times. And so we start by just sharing the very first thing you can do is start to reach out to your trusted partners. Usually those are your banks and your financial partners, financial institution partners, but also they happen to be your economic development organizations, folks like your Initiative Foundation, others that at the SBA that is out there, and DEED, the Department of Employment and Economic Development. So my very first advice is to reach out to someone to help you navigate through your complex but yet specific business needs. Okay,
That makes sense. Yeah, I think that's very sound advice. First and foremost, don't panic. Help is on the way. Help is actually here. So you're serving and have served as a lender. So can small businesses go directly to Region 5, or would you recommend that small businesses start, as you just said, with their local bank, their local lender?
Primarily, we like to have them start with their local bank, but and they'll help navigate you whether or not you should be coming to us for a loan for the program that we're delivering through the state Department of Employment and Economic Development. But there is a matrix on our website, Jay, under region5.org, or it can be accessed at our northcentraleda.org website that helps you understand, look, if I'm a small business and I'm looking at maybe SBA, some of the new programs that came out through the payroll protection program or the emergency lending programs that they have, that emergency inquiry disaster loans. In some cases, you can go straight to their websites and apply right online. And the matrix on our website tells you whether or not that's your first call or your first point of contact, to go straight to the SBA site. In other cases, and your lenders are SBA lenders primarily. Most of them are in our rural communities as well. So that's why I advise people to go to their banker first. And then this matrix on our website also shares, Jay, that the DEED program, the Department of Employment and Economic Development program, you can come directly to us, but our site helps you walk through whether or not you would be eligible, because I don't want businesses to be wasting some very precious, valuable time in trying to navigate through the complexities of some of these systems. And so we've tried to make it easy to help you understand whether or not you're eligible, when it might make sense to look at some of these programs. That's why I encourage you to talk to the bankers first and or your economic development professionals. But you can do a little bit of that research through our website and through some of the information that's available to them in the early on-site if they choose to. Yeah.
Okay. Your website is an amazing resource. So I just want to mention that again. It's region5.org. And on your website, Cheryl, you have a list of all the programs that are currently available to small businesses. Now, I want to follow up on a couple things you mentioned. First and foremost, does it matter if you're a for-profit or a nonprofit? Are some of these programs that are being rolled out, are they specific to for-profits?
Some are, and some are include nonprofits and faith-based organizations, and others are not. And so again, on this tool that we provided on our website, it does let you know whether or not you're eligible right away, so that you can see, okay, I'm a faith-based organization, or I'm a resort, or I have more than 500 employees. And sometimes people think that there are no options for them, which isn't the case. There are programs available for just about any size and or structure of business out there. So it's good to look, because that's sort of some of the information that has been incorrect that I'd like to make sure that the viewers of Lakeland Public TV see, is that keep looking, because there are so many programs out there right now, and they're emerging even as we speak. Some of the federal money that's come down for the states to determine how they're going to establish specific programs are still being rolled out. For instance, the program, whereas if you're a sole proprietor, an entrepreneur that doesn't pay into unemployment benefits, meaning you might be a gig worker, right? So those kinds of folks you would think would not be eligible for any of the unemployment benefits, but that's not the case. There are programs that are being rolled out as we speak for some of these non-traditional types of businesses. So that's why I encourage you to just kind of keep looking at what is out there, because it doesn't really matter what kind of business you are. There is relief out there.
Okay, well, that's good to know and reassuring. So one of the services that you're providing then is really helping people determine whether or not they're eligible for specific programs. And that's one of the things that we can do on your website, correct?
Yes, sir. And then also, Jay, the program that we are delivering through DEED is the DEED's emergency small business emergency lending program. And that program is eligible to those businesses that were closed from the governor's order, the COVID order 20-04 and 20-08. Those two orders impacted specific businesses that were required to close their doors. And there's a list on not only our website, but the DEED website, which we have links to as well. Okay. So that'll help them understand whether or not they can get into that specific program that we are lending. We received $1.1 million to disperse in 10 counties here in central Minnesota. And of that money, we have submitted up to $700,000 in approved applications, and we've received money for about $600,000. So we have 22 loans that we're closing within days. And likely by the time it's all said and done, we'll have dispersed funds to about 40 businesses. But the good news is also the Initiative Foundation also received $1.1 million to cover their 14 county area. The Cass County Economic Development Organization, through that one program, also received $350,000. And the Leech Lake Band of Ojibwa Financial Services also received $350,000. And so that's why I want to make sure that folks know that to keep digging, because just because one of us may have dispersed all of our funds, at one point in time, the Initiative Foundation said they believed they had enough applications that were doing the underwriting to cover well over their 1.1 million, which is the case for us as well. So we've stopped taking applications at this time, but there are other lenders in the state of Minnesota, like Cass County Economic Development Organization or Leech Lake, or there's a list of those lenders on our website, the approved lenders. So a business can keep looking. The state of Minnesota is working to get more funds into this program, but that's yet to be seen, of course. So I encourage people just to keep circling back, because just because today we have expended all of the funds potentially that we have available doesn't mean tomorrow there might not be a resource.
So you've already received applications for those businesses that were closed as a result of the governor's executive order. And you've already, please.
I'm sorry, our organization, yes, has received almost 2 million in requests, Jay, for the 1.1 that we have to disperse. Wow. And that's why I don't want people to waste their very precious time and work on an application when we know we have plenty enough applications to disperse all the funds we have available. So, yeah.
So right here in our region, small businesses can turn to the Initiative Foundation in Little Falls. They could have turned to you, but it sounds as if you've already received a cap on applications. They can also turn to the Cass County Economic Development Corporation or Leech Lake Financial Services.
And to my knowledge, the Initiative Foundation has stopped taking applications at this time. So for that specific program, but that's just the D program, right? That doesn't mean that same tattoo parlor or salon or any other business can't go to the SBA programs, and we're encouraging them to do so. And that's why we want them to talk to their bankers, because there are some wonderful programs out there. I think the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program, is a really good option for lots of folks. And sometimes in some cases, per their advice from their banker, might be the very best and first place to go.
Okay. Well, so you've shared some state-specific programs. Let's talk about the federal programs now for a moment. So the Paycheck Protection Program, of course, is getting a lot of press. Tell us how that's rolling out in our region. Now, I'm hearing you say that that's through an SBA lender, right? So if I, as a small business owner, want to apply for the Paycheck Protection Program, I do so through a designated SBA lender.
True, and there is a list of SBA lenders on our site as well. But that said, I encourage you to talk to your banker, because a lot of bankers are trying to, become working with the Treasury and SBA to come on board as an SBA lender quickly. So some are certified and some are non-certified, but all of the bankers and lenders can help navigate some of that. So I encourage you to do that. But yeah, that is a really good program. SBA is trying to get more lenders on board every day. So I think that behooves you, but it's a very forgiving program. I mean, they look at your payroll taxes over a period of two months, right? They take those payroll taxes plus another 25% that can be used for other expenses, not just payroll, like utilities and rent, et cetera, and mortgage and benefits, employee benefits. And they calculate what you're eligible to receive. And if you maintain your payroll for that same 8 weeks after you received your loan, then that full amount is able to be forgiven if you maintain the payroll levels of which you were at during that loan period. So in some cases, for instance, let's say a restaurant can't hire everybody back after the closures are opened, and they aren't able to get up to that same level that they submitted for their to be eligible for. Then whatever would not be forgivable, which is the language we use in the lending industry, assumes a 1% fixed interest over 2 years. And so it's still decent. So again, that's one of the programs that I think has been really well received. I know of nonprofits that received money, Jay, within 1 day. And some of our financial institutions are really carrying the burden and leaning in to getting this money out to their businesses. So that's why I encourage you to reach out to your lending institutions.
That sounds like a really important safety net right now. So let me just make sure I understand the terms. If you maintain your payroll equal to what it was prior to the pandemic for a period of 8 weeks, then the loan is forgiven in full. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Why wouldn't a business take advantage of that?
Well, I mean, there are a lot of them that haven't navigated the system, and it is a process, and in some cases, you do have to be able to show and have the documentation that to show what your payroll was, right? So typically, folks will either take their taxes and their W-2s and they'll be able to justify the amount. But if there's a difficulty in trying to come up with payroll history, then that could be problematic and difficult. But I'm telling you, the lending institutions, as well as our organizations and the SBA and SBDC, the Small Business Development Centers, they've been helping companies really navigate their own financial chart of accounts and their systems to be able to justify this, because it is a good program. So to answer your question, it really comes down to the ability of the business to be able to provide the documentation required to prove eligibility. And I've sat down in my own home with beauticians and folks that are running very viable, small one-person shop businesses, but haven't been very diligent in necessarily tracking and keeping of their financial records. And so that sometimes can be a barrier.
So the Paycheck Protection Program, unlike the state of Minnesota program for emergency business loans, the Paycheck Protection Program doesn't matter if you're considered an essential business or a non-essential business. If you've been adversely affected, you can apply for this program. Is that right?
This is correct. And it's tribes and sole proprietors and independent contractors, and the eligibility under this is very flexible. So I would say that, yeah.
Okay, that's really helpful. Now, I think it's also important that we not only talk about small businesses, but also talk about the workforce, of course, and the folks that are at these small businesses that are also unexpectedly and adversely affected. So if 99% of the 287 million companies in the United States are small businesses, there's obviously a lot of workers that are affected. Now, a lot of those companies, though, don't have employees. So nearly 80% of the small businesses in the United States actually don't have employees formally. So how does it work if you're an independent contractor or if you're a small business owner, like you just mentioned, for example, a beautician or someone who owns a salon? That person may or may not have employees. So are these resources also available to those types of companies? That's a lot of companies in Minnesota.
That is. And, the unemployment side is not an area that I've been as versed in, to tell you the truth, Jay, because I've been focusing on these businesses and these business loans and trying to just navigate some of that. So the unemployment side is a little more difficult for me to respond to. But if there is a sole proprietor that has licensed their business and they are a formal business, then I'm steering them towards these other programs, right? Because that does make up as you said, a large percentage of the workforce. And we understand that. If they're not recognized as a business and they are, as I said earlier, doing gig work, then there is an unemployment program that is coming out for those individuals. But at the unemployment office, I will tell you, I have never, and I say this respectfully, ever seen Deed be so amazing and magnanimous and step up. They are helping a lot of people. And so the state has just really done a great job at this point in time. So I encourage people to contact Deed, because they have a lot of workers that are helping folks navigate that unemployment system. But overall, it is very concerning. And I have to tell you, what keeps me up at night isn't necessarily whether or not these businesses and individuals are going to get the immediate help that they need, because I think that's happening, be it maybe slower than some of us wanted initially, but I do think it is happening. I'm really concerned about what happens after, what life after for these businesses. What happens in 24 months, and how are we as professionals and these wonderful agencies prepared to make sure that they are able to repay this debt? Because think about it, the unemployment isn't an easy thing to sort of get your head around. These business loans are loans. And while there is a forgiveness component to it, if they assume a portion that's not forgiven and it is still a loan, that means that they will have had to have been making more money post COVID-19 than they were pre COVID-19, at a time in which our economy was doing relatively well. And so we all want, and the lenders talk about it all the time as well. We're very thoughtful about not wanting to set folks up for, just a future failure, and making sure that, yes, we get them the help that they need right now, because these stories are horrific. And there isn't one company out there that's not important to the fabric of our community. Not one. And not one person who's unemployed isn't important to us. And so we understand that. But at the same time, we're also thinking about how do we make sure after the crisis and we get and expend some funds, how do we make sure we're being responsible enough to help these folks get back to work and get these companies back to rolling and stay in business, because we're concerned about defaults in about 2 years.
That makes sense. So one of the things that has come up a great deal is whether or not some of these small businesses have to have prior relationships with lenders. A lot of small businesses actually haven't used conventional lenders in the past, and so they may not be familiar with how to even navigate that process. So can you explain to us whether or not businesses that are now in need of emergency financing have to have a relationship with an existing relationship with the lender?
No, I prefer to think that they would, but if they don't, and I know those cases are there, no doubt. The SBA, some of the SBA programs are all online, and you can go directly to their sites. And I know the Community Reinvestment Fund also has a very robust site that was looking at doing online applications and for those that you're speaking to, Jay, that don't have those kinds of relationships with lending institutions. And that's why I also encourage you to go to your SBA office and talk to them if you don't have a relationship with a banker. That's exactly why they call intermediary lenders, which is what we are, and the Initiative Foundation is. We're an intermediary lender, that we are established. The Entrepreneur Fund and others, the Women's Venture Funds, some of those that are out here, all of those folks are listed as lenders on our website, and not all of them are traditional lenders. And some of them are working with individuals that have some specific needs and or don't have pre-existing relationships with financial institutions. And so check out that list and find someone that you think that you want to reach out to and talk to. And we've been fielding quite a few calls. So if we can't help you, and that's the same with all my colleagues, the economic development organizations in each of our counties are doing double time at trying to make sure that if you're a company and you need help, we'll help get you to the right folks. Some chambers of commerce are able to help with that as well, Jay. Some are sort of burdened with some other things and have other priorities at this time. So reach out to your economic development folks if that's an option that you would prefer.
Okay, so just to be clear, the SBA is a Small Business Administration, and you can simply look or search for the Paycheck Protection Program at the Small Business Administration, and the application comes up. And so that web address is available to you at the bottom of the screen here. And so that's a fantastic resource that Cheryl has directed us to. And there are many others on the Region 5 website as well. Cheryl, I'm curious, do you think that all of the programs that you've mentioned, do you think it's enough?
I don't know, right? It's really going to be, time will tell. I am not sure if it is enough. I think we will all have work to do after the programs and the money is dispersed. It is a lot of money. It is a lot of money nationally. It's a lot of money that the state has put into these programs. And I'm hoping that makes just enough difference that we can restart and to re-engage our economy. But I don't think any of us have a good feeling as to whether or not what is enough. I'm pleased and surprised that our state legislature put $30 million into the small business emergency fund that they did through deed. But who knows if that will be enough. Clearly, I'm getting more applications, as are all of the lenders across the state of Minnesota, receiving more applications than we have money available. But at what point is enough is a valid question, Jay, and I'm not sure. We will continue to serve and to deliver the funds at the pace of which the state feels it is appropriate. But I do encourage residents and businesses, particularly if you think that you are not being able to be served through any of these programs, and despite all of the advice that you're getting from folks, do feel like you should reach out to your local legislators and let them know the status of your company, because our representatives and senators won't know unless we're giving them that information as well, to say, that we might need some more here. So we do our job at making sure it gets out the door as soon as the state decides that it's available.
Well, thanks for that. But we have very little time left, and I just have one more final question. As is often the case, there's an equity concern with these funds in terms of accessibility. Recently, there's nearly 14% of the Minnesota workforce has applied for unemployment, but in communities of color, that rate is as high as 26%. And of course, we have the good fortune of sharing our region with the Leech Lake Band of Ojibwe. So I'm curious, are there resources specifically available to tribal nations?
There have been, and I know that the governor and his team indeed has been working on even more programs that are available to Leech Lake. So the Leech Lake Financial Services is a great resource. I know that the community development and economic development divisions at Leech Lake are also furiously working at trying to make sure that they're serving the needs of the residents. And so I think, I know that there are programs out there. I know that more are being launched. But that is another thing. It's a concern. No doubt the equity piece is real. It is not being just contrived through some sort of media. It's real. And we need to make sure that as these precious resources, our taxpayer resources, are being dispersed, that communities hit hardest are really, that we pay attention, and we're making sure that we're distributing those funds in an equitable way. And so I'm hopeful that that's happening. I would rely on my colleagues, Jay, frankly, at Leech Lake Financial Services, and the community and economic development professionals, Rob and Randy and those folks, to tell you whether or not that's actually happening. Because from my perspective, I'm hearing that it's being well taken care of. But
Great. Well, I'm pleased to hear that. Cheryl, I want to thank you so much for joining us. And more importantly, I want to thank you for all the work that you've been doing on behalf of our small businesses, both before and during and after the pandemic. So we appreciate you and your services very much. Thanks for joining us today.
Jay, it's my privilege, and I just want to say a shout out one more time to the team members, because it's certainly not I that's doing all this. It is we have a great team, and Stephanie Barney has been just phenomenal in our team. So I just want to make sure that businesses are served. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you today.
Thank you. And thank all of you for joining us again at Lakeland Currents. And I want to let you all know that we will continue production during the pandemic. So please let us know at Lakeland Public TV what's on your mind currently and what's important to hear during the pandemic. Production will continue. Everyone, stay safe, stay strong, be kind, and be well. I'm Jason Edens, your host for Lakeland Currents.